All right, we're doing podcast number 33. Corey, Connor, Addie Bracy in the house. Let's do this. All right, yeah. Wow, it's hot. All right, it's so good to have you guys here.
Thanks for having us.
Of course. Which, by the way, I've been wanting to have you on the show pretty much since we met, but I didn't want to overwhelm you because for the audience, I started working with Addie and Corey. Maybe how long it's been? Couple months, maybe, or 3 months, maybe. And so it's been great. They're coaching me to, help me to get back to all things running and find that motivation again. And it's definitely working. But anyway, when I started working with you guys, I was like, yeah, I want to have them on the show, but I don't want to overwhelm you. It was like, okay, we just started training together, and I don't want to be like, yeah, you want to go on my podcast? But I want you to know that you were on my list, on the top of the list. But thanks so much for being here. I'm really excited to spend some time with you. I was just telling you guys before we started this conversation that I saw you you were doing some high altitude running days ago. And that's kind of like after your amazing experience with Western States. Can you are you guys back on training mode? What is next for the next months?
We're both racing, well, tentatively racing Pikes Peak Marathon. I think my recovery at first, I felt like pretty good when I started running again, and then I kind of like plateaued, like, ooh, maybe I'm not quite ready to be doing quality stuff yet. So we still had some fun getting up high, and I feel like it's come pretty easy and felt good. So right now that's the plan. I think that's, a month out, 3 weeks, maybe?
Yeah.
So just been trying to get up high since that's kind of the challenge of the Pikes Peak Marathon.
Yeah. I think, oh, God, every time we go up to, like, Indian Peaks or anything up past 10,000 feet, it's just a whole new ball game. And so you're, like, huffing and puffing. You're like, I thought I was in shape, but so we're nervous for it. She's done the Pikes Peak ascent before, so she's done the first half of the race. Right. But I've never done it. And so I've watched her do it, and the face she makes finishing that race made me never want to do it. So I'm not sure why I signed up for the marathon, but I'm excited because it's going to be, it's a Golden Trail series, so a bunch of international athletes will be there. Be really competitive, and I think it'll just be like a great, chance to push ourselves against some elite runners.
Now, for people who are not aware of the marathon and Pikes Peak, can you talk a little bit more about the epicness of the terrain?
Yeah, so you start, like Corey said, I've only done the ascent, which is just up, but you basically start in Manitou Springs. What is the elevation down there? It's probably maybe around 7,000 or 8,000. I'm honestly not sure. But you top out, it's 13 miles to the top of Pikes Peak, which is a 14er, so it's over 14,000 feet. Right. And then for the marathon, you flip and come back down. I've been told, though, that the marathon's almost better because you don't have to run up so hard, because it's just, 13 miles straight uphill, pretty relentless, gaining elevation as you go. So the actual terrain's not crazy technical, I don't think, for like a 14er, but just relentless uphill, and the elevation's really challenging.
So is the route the same for the marathon than for the ascent?
Yep. So
I see.
For the ascent, you just end at the top.
Got it.
So you take a shuttle back down.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool. It's kind of neat because it's one of the 14ers that you can drive up to. So there's always a big crowd up there, and you're like Corey always used to come to the top and cheer. So it's pretty neat. Yeah,
I've been there only a couple times, never using my legs to get to the top. It was like taking the cog, I think. And there's like a big like a shop, like a store where you can buy. I remember eating donuts up there.
Yeah, it's kind of weird in some ways.
Hamburgers. It's like one time we took my in-laws there, and they loved it. But yeah, it's really high, and it's amazing, like how big of that like shop is. You can buy all kinds of things, and the donuts, for some reason I remember them. So a month away from a month from now, it was. So after finishing Western State, was that kind of the plan, or were you considering maybe other races, or maybe taking a longer break?
I think for Corey, she had kind of taken a break after Worlds and was probably ready to get geared back up. I think for me, it was one of those, like, I didn't feel like I had a great race at Western, so I was like really eager to race again. So probably could have maybe afforded a longer break, but I feel pretty good now, and I'm like excited, mentally and emotionally, like excited to train. So just kind of going with it.
When was Worlds, Corey?
It was the beginning of June. June 8th, I think, was the exact date. But
And so that was in Portugal, and that was like 23.7 kilometers. Is that right?
It was actually 44K, so it was a little over a marathon.
Okay, wow. Okay.
Yeah,
how was that experience?
Oh my gosh, European trail racing is like no other. I prepared really well for it, I thought, but there's no mimicking those trails over there. It's so technical, and it's just so gnarly, like a lot of it, you're like, is this even a trail? What am I doing? You know? And the challenging part of it was, it was really narrow, and you're running both the men and the women together. So there's over like 400 people in the race that are really talented individuals. So everyone's with each other. So you're in these packed bunches on this really narrow, technical, gnarly trail. So it was really, really challenging to just like work your way through the crowds and stuff, but it was an amazing experience. I learned so much. I think I grew a year and more from that race, in terms of running, but I had a great time. Our team was so cool and fun, and everyone had like no egos. We just all vibed really well. So the team part was really fun. The men and women's team didn't have great performances. Like I think we all expected to do better, but just the first day we went and, viewed that course, we all were like, well, I don't know about this. But it was fun, and I would do it again a million times. But great experience, just so hard.
How do you qualify to be part of the U.S. team?
So usually what they do is they take there's a couple of different qualification races. This year it was the U.S. 50K Championships in February.
Was it in California?
It was in California at Formidable.
Right.
And then
which you won?
I did not win that. No. I got fourth. Danny Moreno won that. But yeah, that's kind of how I got in. I got fourth place, and other people turned down their spots. Actually, Addie was chosen, and she turned down her spot, so I probably took Addie's place. But you can also submit a resume. They take 2 people via resumes, your running resume. So I did do that as well. But it's a good opportunity to kind of like go against, world-class athletes.
Yeah.
And IAAF is now partnered with the World Championship Trail Races, so it's actually becoming like a really, prominent race now.
Right.
So hopefully some of the other awesome U.S. trail runners start to want to be on these teams, and the U.S. can kind of be more competitive with the other countries.
Right. Nice. And I have to say, like, again, I've known you guys for a couple of months, and I'll be honest, before we started to get working together, I didn't know about you guys, and so these last few days I've been doing more research, and I mean, it's just incredible, like your background of both of you, like, and I love the fact that you're kind of finding in trail and ultra running like this. I don't know if a second win is a good way to put it, but like this excitement and motivation to, enjoy what you do and feel alive. And so we'll talk about that, of course. But for people who are not aware of, know you very well, like, can you talk a little bit more about growing up, where you grew up, North Carolina, right? The South. I have family in the South too. Well, my in-laws, Arkansas, so conservative place. So, but can you talk a little bit more about growing up there? The same with you, Corey?
Just growing up in North Carolina?
Yeah.
I lived there until 2012, so I spent 26 years in North Carolina. Grew up there and went to college there and stayed there for a long time. So my story is that I actually came to Colorado. At the time, got a call from Brad Hudson, who wanted to coach me for the marathon, and at the time I was like, well, I'm probably not going to get a better opportunity. I still think he's like one of the best marathon coaches, and was preparing for Chicago. So he asked me to come out to Boulder and just train for, I think I was only planning to be here about 4 or 5 weeks. And I had never, I traveled a lot, but I had never spent time anywhere other than North Carolina. And within 2 weeks I was like, whoa, it's a big world out there. I lived in kind of a bubble of the conservative Southeast. So I actually called my parents and was like, yeah, I don't think I'm going to come home. So I had them ship all my stuff out. I just never went home.
Right.
And that was, 7 years ago? So So, I mean, it's a wonderful place. You know, my family still lives in North Carolina, and it's beautiful. But just culturally, I didn't feel like I fit in as much. It's just pretty conservative and traditional and just kind of like a specific way of doing things. And I think it took me kind of being somewhere else in a very liberal place like Boulder to kind of want to live somewhere like that, where there's just a lot less limitations and expectations on, you know, what your life should look like. Because even trying to make it as an athlete, I think is kind of unconventional in some ways. It's not a glamorous life. And I think back home, a lot of my friends were like, how do you not like have a normal job yet? And, you know, all my friends from high school are married with kids and kind of went the normal route. So it was a pretty easy sell for me to stay here and not go back.
Yeah, I hear you. What about you, Corey?
Yeah, I grew up in outside Boston, Massachusetts. It's more like Worcester, Massachusetts, but I say Boston because no one knows any place but Boston and Massachusetts. But yeah, I had a great, you know, childhood, and I have several siblings, and all of them played sports. And I really didn't focus on running at all until college. And I walked on my team. I went to the University of Maine. I walked on my team, and it just kind of like exploded from there. And I found a lot of success in running, which I didn't expect. And so after having so much success in college, I was recruited by the Hanson's Distance Project out in Michigan. So I went and ran with them. But I, you know, and I had some early success there. I made a couple of U.S. teams, which is how I met Addie. Actually, we both made a U.S. cross team, and we're over competing in Scotland. But for some reason, you know, I know the reason. I was really struggling there because I was dealing with so much internally. Like I was still figuring out who I was, and I think I just couldn't handle competing at that elite level, like professionally, and still trying to figure out who I was in every respect. So I ended up leaving the sport altogether a year after I first started running professionally. And I moved back home and ended up moving to Portland, Maine, and just kind of rediscovered myself for like 4 years. No running.
No running.
I ran, at first I like kind of kept running in my life, but I was like too competitive to really leave it. So I was like, if I'm going to do this and figure out who I am, I need to just stop. So I left running for a while, and I think I needed to do that because my whole identity was so wrapped up in running. I was like, I got to figure out who I am outside of the sport. I'm glad I did, but it wasn't until I reconnected with Addie that I saw her doing, you know, trail mountain ultra stuff.
Right.
I was like, what is that, you know?
Yeah.
And so I visited her, and she took me up actually to the Brainerd Lake region up high as my first run here. I was wearing like shorts. I was like, oh, this is going to be great. It was like summertime, but we get up there and it was snowing, and I was like, what is this place? But I just fell in love with it.
Right.
And I started training with her, and I would go to all of her races, and eventually I was like, okay, it's time for me to do this too, you know? So I owe it to her, really. She like reignited that fire for me, and I missed running so much. And I was like, I want to try this again, you know?
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. My research, I was reading about a blog post that you put out in 2016 where you talk about your struggles, and basically came out, and you it was so inspiring. I was not able to find it. I found some sections of it, but correct me if I'm wrong, that blog post kind of inspired you to reach out to Addie and kind of reconnect. Would that be true?
That's pretty much like how our reconnection happened. I had known her, like I said, right out of college when I made that U.S. team. She was on it as well, and so that's how I met her. But you know, and we stayed in touch. We raced against each other a lot, but we never, you know, I didn't know that she was gay, and I was figuring it out for myself. So when she came out with that blog post, it was right at the time where I was like, I'm going to tell my family what's been going on. I'm going to come out to them, come out to my friends. And so I saw her post, I read through it, and it just like inspired me.
So wait. So you were thinking about telling your family before you read a post? Mm-hmm. Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. So got it.
It's really serendipitous because like I said, I was finally coming to terms with it.
3 years.
Yeah, we hadn't talked in 3 years. And so, it was like she paved the way for me by showing, like, she showed me exactly what I needed to do, and I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. So I reached out to her before I did it. I was like, I just want you to know I'm really proud of you for this post. Very courageous of you to do that, and also thank you because I'm going to now come out to my parents, my friends, and my family. So yeah, and then I did, and everything worked out great. And she was like, "Why don't you come visit me? Let's reconnect." Because we had we really had a good little friendship before I left running. So I came out, and our connection was just like even stronger after that.
Right,
so
right.
I ended up moving out here a couple months later, and much to my parents' demise, they were like, "What? You can't move." But yeah, everything since then. I moved out in January 2017. Was it only a couple months?
Was it not a year?
Yeah, it was a couple months. Yeah, like I reached out to her in August, and I moved out in January. True. Yeah.
I love it. And can you how was the experience of sharing coming out to your family and friends? Because I have also personal experience with my brother, but I'm just curious to learn or hear more about how did your family take it and how was that?
I mean, I was so nervous about it, and I don't know why, because I know my parents and my friends, everyone in my family is so supportive and very liberal, and really always been really welcoming and accepting of everyone. So I don't know why I was so nervous about it, but I was terrified, and it took me so long to build up the courage. And I think it's because I came out in my mid-20s, and so my parents knew me as someone else for so long, or what I thought. So the funny thing is that when I came out, especially to my siblings, they were like, "We were waiting," like we knew that.
Yeah.
But they were great. They were wonderful, and everyone has been wonderful. I never had a bad experience with it, and I'm not naive. Like I know that's not always the case, but yeah, I don't know. I'm so glad that I did it, because it really was an awesome experience. And now who I am and how happy I am, and how great it feels to be living authentically. I'm like, wow, I should have done that so much earlier. But she had a little bit different of a story, and so that's kind of why I was hesitant too, because I knew some people where it didn't go like that, So, but Addie can talk about hers a little bit.
Yeah, I think my family handled it as well as they could. My brothers especially were totally fine. My mom had a harder time, and I think it was more the way she describes it to me is like the world that she lives in is different than the one I live in here, and she was worried for me about immediately she thought I would lose my job because I was coaching at a high school at the time, and in my mind it was like sad to me that she thought that was even like something that could happen, because it can't you can't lose a job for that, but just in her mind she was very concerned about me being limited by that and judged and that kind of thing. So I think her response came from a place of like love and caring about me, but it also opened my eyes to just how do I say it? Just like how things can be that way, and in her mind that is such a reality that it made me realize kind of still how behind I think that region is. It's just North Carolina is different. But like Corey said, I've never experienced anything that made me think anybody really cared, honestly.
Right.
So.
Right. Yeah, I have my only sibling, my brother. He came out maybe 3-4 years ago, and I remember, I clearly remember when he called me, and I could tell in the tone of his voice of this combination of excitement and hesitation, and I've never heard him talking like that, and I think he thought that since I was the big brother, he thought I wasn't gonna take it, and I'm like, dude, I was kind of like you, I was like, yeah, I mean, I'm so glad that you share this with me. I love it, and I'm glad that you can embrace a life of, I don't know, a more fulfilling life. And with my mom and dad, it was a little different, especially more my dad. They basically decided to like not talk about it, so they were not like It's not like they stopped talking to my brother or anything like that, but it's been a process, and like that's been maybe like 4 or 5 years ago. And again, growing up in Peru, we're all Catholic. We were not like really hardcore Catholics. I'm not, but anyway, so they grew up like that. So it's been a process. I think my mom embraced it more than my dad. My dad's still trying to like make the next step, I guess, to fully embrace it, but it's and I can imagine like how hard it was for my brother to have the courage to share that. Like I can even feel it when again I'm thinking about that conversation that we had. He just feeling this relief. He was so relieved. So, and that definitely, it's such an important steps. Definitely not easy. So Corey, you moved to Colorado, and then basically, and you were already coaching and running on trails, right?
Mm-hmm.
Addie, by 2017.
Yeah, I think I ran my first trail race in July of 2016.
Right. And that was, this is a cool story, right? Because that was right after you missed the Olympic trials for the 10K. I mean,
so
cool, but
yeah.
Sorry.
Bummer,
but it's like a what?
But it worked out. Yeah,
yeah.
It worked out. So I had, I'd been trying to make the trials. I think my steeplechase time was about, I think, a second and a half or 2 seconds off. And then at the last minute, I was like, well, I'm going to try and hit the 10K time because I had run the 10K at the trials in 2012 and thought I could hit the time. And I wasn't even close. And I think, this was also around the time that, similar to what Corey was explaining, like I had told my parents, I'd come out to like my parents and my close friends, but still not that many people. So it was just still kind of this burden that I was holding on to. And ran the 10K in Portland and was like, I'm done running. Like, I don't want to do it anymore. And actually Matt Daniels, so one of my good friends, was running the U.S. Mountain Championships. I think it was like 3 weeks later or something. And so he convinced me to go with him and just kind of do a fun race. I had been training, so it wasn't like I wasn't in shape. I had just never done a mountain race. I didn't even know what mountain running was. So it was a little bit of a rude awakening when I got out there and like ran the course the day before and was like, wait, what? Because at the end of it is actually like a 44% grade or something. And it like blew my mind. Like, how are we going to race up this?
Yeah.
But yeah, I ended up winning, and between that and just, was it right after that I wrote that blog?
Yeah.
I think those two things, it just like this weight was lifted off of me, and from then on, it's just been like running's just been fun and not felt like stressful like I think it felt like before.
Yeah, I was reading some blog posts where you I think you talk about a race. Gosh, there's so much information about you. I think it was that night before a race where you couldn't go to bed. It was 2:40 in the morning. You couldn't go to bed. You went out for a run at 3 in the morning. Was that before what race?
That was my marathon PR, surprisingly. Yeah.
I remember 2:35.
Yeah.
Like what?
So I
talk about that because you qualified for the trials twice, right?
Yes, 3 times technically. I guess I qualified for the marathon in 2012, but I ended up not racing. I got a stress fracture
I see.
3 weeks before, and then I ran the track in 2012, and then I qualified again in the marathon in 2016. I had trained with my training partner Kara, and we had run every workout together. I knew I was in really good shape. Brad thought we were in shape to run really fast, and we were going for the A standard, which was I think 237 maybe, so we were trying to run under 237, and I was just so nervous before, and I could go on and on about that, but classic me, which is why I'm in sports psychology now, because it was a problem for me.
Of course.
But it was CIM. So for CIM, they bus you to the start. So we had to be ready to leave at like 5 a.m. or something. And so of course I'm laying in bed and I'm like super stressed. I've trained for like 12 weeks for this one race, and we have one shot to hit the A standard, which now I'm like, it doesn't even really matter. But at the time it was like, my Olympics. I'm laying there in bed, and by like midnight I couldn't fall asleep. And at that point I'm like doing the math, and I'm like, even if I fell asleep right now, I would only sleep like 3 hours because I have to get up and have breakfast. So around 2 or 3 I finally just got up and like got dressed, and I went out in front of the hotel and was like doing strides, and like I almost didn't race actually. I called Brad from the bus because it was kind of setting in, and I had that weird like when you don't sleep, and your body just feels kind of weird, and I was like, I feel terrible. And he's like, well, there's actually people that have run world records on no sleep. Like, just start the race and see what happens. And I was like, okay, I'll start, but I'll probably drop out. And I felt terrible. Like, every step felt terrible. But, I had my training partner there, and we had a guy pace us the entire way. And I just kind of stuck with it and ended up running really well. So it was cool for me to experience that, like, you can still perform when things don't go ideal or you don't feel amazing. And that's kind of stuck with me. Like, when other races I don't sleep as much as I want to, or maybe a little sick going in, you can still kind of tough through it if you have the right approach and almost just accept that it's not going to feel good. So.
Now, Corey, do you also deal with this anxiety and this kind of nervousness the same as Addie does, or what would you say? I'm gonna say no. You're more chill. No, that's what I love about your personalities, you guys. Again, and I don't know you that well, but it's just amazing balance. That, but go ahead. Yeah.
No, yeah, I don't have those pre-race nerves. I mean, I have the normal amount. Everyone gets a little bit nervous before races and stuff, but I don't have that anxiety, or I don't know. Like I can't sleep. Like I can sleep fine before my races and things like that. I think the difference though is that she's just so confident in herself, right? And she's so steadfast in her beliefs and how much she believes in herself and her training and everything like that. And it goes to show you she can tough things out when everything's stacked against her. Like you don't sleep a wink and then you go run a 2:35 marathon, right? I think the difference for me is I don't have that. If things in training don't go great or I'm not feeling good, that really plays with my mind and my self-confidence just goes out the window. And so I'm much more likely in a race to be like, no, I don't got this. I think I'm going to pull out, So I don't have that. But I also am a little bit more relaxed in my approach to training and racing. I just, taking 4 years off will do that to you. I think I'm just, I'm at a place where I'm really happy with my life right now. And I'm really excited to do these things. So for me, it's more like cool. Like, of fun,
course. Yeah.
But I do want to be more competitive too. Like there's also that side where I'm like, I could be a little bit better if I put a little more into this. But, it's finding that balance. And I think for Addie, she's just always been at this amazing level. And she wants to remain there. And with me, I'm like, do I want to get there? Like right here, So for me, it's kind of all like mentally figuring that out. But the anxiety and the nerves is something that I luckily don't get that much.
Which I sleep before races now.
She's better.
God.
She is better.
Good.
She's gotten better.
Trail running doesn't make me feel as stressed as track and marathons used to.
Right. I was just thinking what you were just saying, because you just started running again maybe a year and a half ago, and you're already winning races like the oh my god, I forgot the Fort Collins one. Quad Rock and the Bear Chase, and you went to Portugal. So yeah, it's pretty awesome. I was gonna ask you, I'm just curious to learn more about how do you guys get accepted to train for these groups like the Hansen's Brooks Project or Training for Brad. How does that work? Are you being approached? Are you recruited, or you reach out to them? Because I've heard that from Brad too. Brad calls people and invites them to. How's that work?
Yeah, for Hansen's, it was a recruiting process. They contacted my college coach, and I really had no aspirations to run professionally. But when they approached my coach, I was just like, oh, this is something that's an option for me. And it got me really excited, and they had me come out for a visit. So I visited the team and, where I'd be living, and kind of spent a couple days running with them to kind of get a feel for the group. And Des Linden was there, so I was like, of course I'm joining. She's my idol. But yeah, it was a recruiting process. But there are other teams where it's very much you can reach out and see if there's a good fit there too. So I think there's both sides of it, but it does tend for some of those higher level teams to be a recruitment process where they're reaching out to people that they think would be a good fit for their team.
Got it. Was there like a test, like how fast can you run a 10K?
Well, I only ever was approached after I broke 16 minutes in the 5K. So I think that was kind of like the level that they were looking for. Yeah, they were like, if you can run this fast, then But they were a marathon, training group, and I had never obviously run the marathon out of college, and I had no desire to run the marathon, so I was really hesitant about it. Because literally every woman in the training group was running marathons. And so I asked them, I was like, is there a chance for me to really try to still run track 5Ks and 10Ks and road races? And they were like, yeah. So you also have to make sure that, what you want in your training lines up with like that group's mentality, which can be difficult,
Right. Addie, how was your experience being approached by Brad?
Yeah. So I was a few years out of college. I thought I wanted to coach college, so I actually stayed in Chapel Hill, where I went to school for 3 more years and helped coach. So the assistant coach there was coaching me, and he's actually at Ole Miss right now, and he's crushing it. But I think I kind of realized I trained by myself for 3 years and did every workout by myself, and still made the Olympic trials in the 10K. So there was kind of this epiphany of, I need to be training with other people. And at the time, you know, groups are a lot more common now. Then honestly, it was like Hansen's and not even the current Flagstaff group. It was like the McMillan group.
Yeah.
And that was kind of it. There weren't really groups. That wasn't really a thing yet. So now, like she said, I think the recruiting process is a lot different because most of those groups are backed by shoe companies and there's kind of money and support involved. But when I was looking, it was just, I just want people to train with. So at the time, Allie Kiefer was out here and she was training with Brad, and she was the only girl, and I think he was coaching at that time, like Jason Hartman was still running, and Pat Rizzo and Fernando Cabada. So they had a bunch of guys, but she was the only girl. So she actually kind of recruited me. She knew that I was training alone and that I was looking for people to train with. And so she talked to Brad and was like, you need to reach out to this girl. She's going to be a good marathoner, because I think I'd only done like one marathon. So yeah, he called me, and like I said, I thought my future was in the marathon. I don't think I ever ran the marathon I could have, but again, just knowing that was my goal, I think he's just an amazing marathon coach. So he called me, I think one time. I talked to him on the phone for 10 minutes. He's very brief on the phone, and just kind of like trusted him and was he's a quirky guy. I think he's extremely smart, but at the time I was like, well, talk to this guy for 10 minutes. He invited me to Boulder. I'm just going to do it. Like, what do I have nothing tying me to North Carolina. So put my dog in my car and left like 2 weeks later, and honestly, like never looked back. So, and I trained with him for 5 more years, I think. And he mentored me, you know, as a coach, and then a lot of like the experience and knowledge I have about coaching, you know, comes from him. So it was a really good experience and a good time, but there was just a point when my like road running and track running days were over.
Right. Yeah, Brad is a very brief guy. Every time I exchange messages with him, I just send him all this long text with exclamation points
and say like, okay.
Yep, totally.
That's
Thanks.
about it. Which is crazy, because if you've ever met him in person, like he won't stop talking.
Oh, totally.
But
he
on the phone, he's very short.
I love the guy. He's a character. He's awesome. What was I gonna ask? Yeah, I was listening to a podcast that you had with Rob Steger, which I interviewed him last week for Training for Ultra, where you were talking about your oh my god, I just lost my thought. It was something about knowing that, I guess, the marathon distance, I don't know, you felt that you were not going to keep improving, I guess, and you always talk about road running as being an objective sport, which I makes sense, you know, how you compare that with trail running, and thought that was really interesting. Like, can you talk more about your transition? Like, how did the transition start from road to trail?
Yeah, I think I just got to the point where I wasn't racing better. I wasn't getting faster. And I mean, we're in a very exciting time right now in the US where we're just crushing it. And especially on the women's side, like people are just getting faster and faster and faster. And it's exciting, you know, as a fan of the sport. But when you're, you know, a washed up 30-year-old trying to still make, you know, USAs and stuff, it's like hard when college girls are like kicking your butt. And I started to find myself, you know, not wanting to be at races and like not wanting to be there. And to me, that just it scared me, because I knew a lot of people who had gotten to that point. And then, you know, I think Corey was at this point for a while where like they wanted nothing to do with running.
Right.
They didn't want to be around it, and I didn't want that to happen to me, because I love this sport. So I kind of saw it as a way to save that love. And the trails it came really naturally. And I mean, I was winning races pretty, I don't want to say easily, because it wasn't easy, but it felt right. And I felt like when I was running track, I was always trying to be someone that maybe I wasn't. And I was, you know, I trained really hard and I would race okay. But, you know, no matter how much more time I put in, I wasn't getting that much better. Whereas trails, it was like, it felt like it matched my natural talents a little bit better. And it was more fun, and like it was the lifestyle I wanted. You know, I wanted to be outside and be in the mountains and stuff. So it clicked really quickly, and you know, I love it. And it's not like I haven't gone back to roads and track because I can't. I just have chosen not to. And I think we're both in a good place. We were at the U.S. Championships this past weekend, and we can be around the sport, and it doesn't feel negative at all. So I think I'm really happy about that we can still just be fans too.
Nice. Now, Corey, talk about your experience moving to Colorado. So you reach out to Addie. She invited you to come. How were those first days in Colorado?
Oh my gosh, it was amazing here. I was still not at like a great place with running when I met her, or reconnected with her rather. So it was difficult, you know, dating someone who is their whole life is running and you wanted nothing to do with it at that time. So there were some challenging months at first.
Oh yeah.
You know?
It was not easy.
Yeah, there were definitely some challenging months, but the more and more
What is your priority, Addie? Running or your girlfriend? I remember.
Really gonna go for a run
Especially
right
like
now?
on Christmas or like we were on a ski trip.
Yeah.
You really have to go run.
I'm like, are you kidding me? But
That's awesome.
the more I saw her, you know, in her natural element, which really I feel is the trails and the mountain and the ultra races, and how much she enjoyed it, and also just like her mentality was so different than what I thought runners were like, because, you know, I was from the track and road background where everyone's really type A,
and you have to be,
right? You're, you know, it's like we said, it's an objective sport. You are a number, and you're only, you know, you're a 2:35 marathoner. You're a,
oh man, that
know.
sounds stressful.
It is, and I like, that's why I didn't want anything to do with it. But when I saw what she was doing and the people she was around competing, their mentality was like they just enjoyed it, and to them it was like they're adventuring, and, you know, it was so cool. And so when I finally started going for runs with her, it clicked with me that this is so different. You know, this is a totally different environment, and it's still running, which I always loved, but it's your mentality and the approach is so different. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna give this a try too. You know, if anything, at least we can spend more time with each other. You're running all the time, so I might as well run with you. But she kind of showed me the way and showed me that, look, you can live your life and you can run too, and, you know, one doesn't have to take away from the other, and you can kind of join them into this beautiful thing. And so, yeah, ever since I moved here, I've taken up, you know, trail running, and we're up in the mountains camping now. And I never thought I was like a mountain person. I never thought I was that tough. I still don't think I'm that tough, but I really enjoy it, and I would love, you know, getting off the grid, disconnecting from everything, and just kind of enjoying nature, and especially with someone you love. I mean, it's beautiful and amazing. So I'm so lucky that she lives here.
So when you first started running on trails, I imagine Addie started coaching you, and then you your first race or official race was the Moab Marathon, maybe, or
that was the first race.
Because I read that blog post, it was awesome. I mean, I'm sorry you bonked. It was bad.
It was such a bad race. But there's actually a really funny story, because Moab was the first trail race that I trained for, but the first race Addie took me to was actually the Rut in Montana.
Oh yeah, okay. I thought that was after the Rut.
Oh my gosh,
that was ignorance on my part.
Addie goes like this, you know, I had been running a couple months maybe, right? And she's like, why don't you just hop into a trail race? I'm going to go do the Rut in Montana. She's like, it's just a trail race. And I was like, okay, yeah, sounds cool. We show up there, and I run that race. I'm out there for like 4.5 hours with like no water. I'm like, what are we doing? We're on exposed ridge lines up, you know, really high. I'm scared of heights. I'm taking tumbles. I'm bloody. I'm puking. And I finish, and I think when I finished, she thought I was going to break up with her and be like, it's done.
I love this. Sorry.
But I had felt how hard it was, and the whole race, I was like a little bit ahead of her, and I was so stressed the whole time, like, oh, she's going to freak out when she hits this section. And then I finished, not that far ahead of you, like maybe 15 minutes or something, and I see her coming down, and she's got like snot all over her shirt, her face is bleeding, I can tell she fell, and I was like, well, it's over, like she's 100% gonna break up. And she finished and like fell to the ground and was like, that was awesome. And I was like, yes, thank God.
That's awesome.
She had like a dirt mustache.
It was crazy. It was one of those things where I was like, what am I doing? But you finish and you're like, that was an amazing journey. I can't believe I just did that. I didn't know I could do that.
Yeah. I love that those kinds of feelings that when you don't think you can do something, but then you just realize that, hey, yeah, you know.
Yeah. If you would have told me or showed me that race beforehand, I would have been like, hell no, I'm not doing that. But after, I felt so incredible, because I felt like tough and strong, and And I don't know, it's a feeling that I never had running track or roads, you know, and it's so different. And I immediately was like, I want to do more of this. Maybe not the run again, but like I want to do more of this. So yeah, so I trained for Moab, and I still bonked and had a terrible race. Like it went really bad, but the same thing, you know, I didn't know if I could finish the race, and then I finish it and I just feel so proud of myself, and it's like this empowering feeling, and I continually want to feel like that. And that's why I think I've kind of stuck with it, is because even if it's not really about results for me, it really isn't. It's more about, pushing myself and doing things that I really didn't think I could do. And so now I'm doing these, you know, I'm running a 50K, which is my first ultra I did this year. And I'm considering doing a 50-mile race.
The formidable.
Yeah.
Got it. Yep.
And I'm realizing that it's not even about competing. I do like to be competitive and I like to do well, but it's more about just getting out there and feeling tough and strong and I don't know, just
it's not all over the place.
Yeah. I actually like that.
I like that too. You remind me of, I think one time we were having a talk where one of the things that I like about your philosophy, you guys, is coaching philosophy, is like, and you told me this one day that I was saying something like, I haven't found time to run. It's hard for me to stay motivated. And then you said something like, you know, think of your training not as, I have to do this, but as a me time, because, you know, we all have busy lives. We're busy the whole day, and sometimes you don't find the time. But if you to be able to do those things, but if you think like, okay, I'm just gonna dedicate 1 hour, you know, to do this, I'm gonna really enjoy it, and that's really been helping me to find more time in my training, to think of it as, okay, me time, you know, time to get out, enjoy. I love to just feel like the sweat, especially when it's really hot, and be all nasty and sweaty, snotty. Yep. That's awesome. Even if it's only like a 3-4 mile run, right. It just feels so good. It just feels like, oh yeah, I totally needed this.
And I feel like what I like about trail running is what you're talking about, because we talk about this all the time. I could reflect on most track races I've ever run, and I could tell you like what time I ran, because that's all that mattered, is what time did you end up with. But I couldn't tell you a single memory from the race. And these races are different. It's like when you stand on the line and tackle a trail race, you're just going on your own journey and like battling yourself and your doubts and, you know, all the different things that are going on, and you hope that results in like a good outcome. But that's not the focus. And I couldn't even tell you any times I've run, really. It's mostly just like, oh, that was the race where this happened. It's so much more about the process and less about the outcome, which I think is like the coolest part.
So that's something that I'm always fascinated about, because I was talking with Matt Daniels the other day, and he kind of said something similar, where he was like, I just decided to run my, you know, was it like the Black Canyon 100K, where he got the golden ticket, and he was not really expecting it. And so I'm always honestly fascinated about the mindset that professional runners like you guys have, that, okay, I'm just gonna go have fun, and then hey, you end up winning or qualifying. How do you do that? But when you're running, when you're in you know, competing with other, like, are you like really focused on yourself, or like are you thinking, okay, I'm just gonna pass you, I'm gonna beat you? I'm just curious to see how you work, because I'm sure, you know, that competitive spirit is still pretty intense, right? Yeah,
I mean, there's definitely, I don't want to make it sound like there's not races where we have goals, you know, where we want to qualify or, you know, get a golden ticket or something like that. But even then, you know, when you race track, it's like everyone is friends, but still during the race it's pretty brutal. Like everybody's trying to get done what they want to get done. And I could reflect on some of the best races I've run recently, and it felt like Sonoma, when I got my golden ticket, there was people I wanted to beat, but it was also, I was working with other people. Like Anna Mae and I were working together the entire time, which is crazy because we're also competitors. Same with Way Too Cool. Claire and I were racing each other, you know, until the last 2 minutes of the race. But even though we were racing each other, it still is this different mindset of like, I just want to get the best out of me, and she just wants to get the best out of her, and hopefully my best like beats you, but my intention is not to like destroy you, if that makes sense. And so there still is this like encouragement of like, it's almost like, you're making each other better by racing, by pushing each other. And it's just whoever's best comes out on top that day. It's less about like, it just is a more positive thing. And that's insane to me, to be racing someone for a win at somewhere like way too cool and have Claire and I like encouraging each other. That would just never happen in a track race or a road race. So of course I want to win, but mostly I just want to have the best race I can have.
Right. And Corey, are you gonna stick with the 50K distance and marathon distance, that type of distance? Are you planning to?
That's a tough question, because for me, I'm always like, I see her doing these epic, you watch someone run 100 miles and there's no way you're not like, I want to do that, so for me, I watch her doing these really long races, and it's just, I'm so curious about doing those, but Addie's been really great in holding me back and being like, there's no rush, there really isn't. And I haven't figured out the 50K distance really yet. And, the marathon, I feel like I'm kind of figuring that distance out. And so I think, for a while I should be staying with those, marathon to 50K distances and kind of holding it at that until I finally feel like, yes, I've got what I can out of that. Let me go longer and slower now. But it's really hard for me because I'm training with Addie Bracey, and she just dominates these crazy long races, and I want to do the same. But I think I'll hold off for a bit.
Yeah, of course, makes sense. I was reading a blog post about your experience with Leadville. It's very interesting because from what I read, basically said that you were ready. I mean, physically ready, mentally ready, really, really fit, but I mean, the elements really, like in other factors that you didn't necessarily think about play a big, role in not letting you win, which I still think like second place is such an amazing place. But of course you want to win, right? So I get it. But how did you use that experience to help you, or how do you use that experience with Western States? Which it's interesting because earlier in the interview you said you were not super happy with the result, but I'm like, gosh, 9th place, it's amazing. But I guess I get it. What did you learn from your experience with Leadville, and you used to have a better performance, I guess, like at Western States, or learnings that you got from Leadville?
I think Western, I ran like kind of scared because of how Leadville went, if that makes sense. And with Leadville, I was in very good shape. I'd run a really great race a couple weeks before and had put in some really great training. I was totally healthy. I was running to win, and things just got really bad with my nutrition and the puking. And there was like nothing I could do to pull myself out of it. And to be forced to walk the last 15 miles was just like heartbreaking, to say the least. And so I'm pretty good. I think Corey and I both are very good at, like, we put our blinders on, we're not worried about what other people are doing. We run our own races, and
I don't think I'm that good at that, but
I try to be good at that. And I'm usually running to win, or to at least be in the mix. And I think, I don't want to put words in other people's mouths, but I think people would agree that, like, if I'm there, I'm going to be racing and I'm going to be in the race. Doesn't mean I'm going to win, but I'm going to at least put myself in it. In Western States, I was like so scared. And I think it was partially, again, because Leadville was such a disaster. And I also let a lot of people get in my head about people that had run the race before giving me advice. And I was never in it. I think the gun went off, and I thought I was being smart and being patient by sitting back. But I've just recognized, like, I'm the kind of person that needs to be racing. And who knows, I could have, raced and been in the mix and fallen back to 20th place. I don't know. But it was just almost like I never felt like I was racing. It was weird. The whole race was weird. And when I finished, Corey was like, yeah, that wasn't like you. Like, you're always a fighter. Like, you want to be pushing, you want to be in the mix. And, like, I kind of just, like, saw the race go without me, and I just didn't respond. So I don't necessarily think it was, like, a huge negative. I think going in, our number one goal was to get back next year. And so top 10 was kind of the only real tangible goal we had. But I am disappointed that I didn't compete, and that's what I love about trail racing, and I love competing, and I didn't do that. And so I think Yeah, we'll take that into next year, but the fear of walking 20 miles last year just really stuck with me, and it was still PTSD from that, and didn't want that to happen. So
yeah, wow, yeah, that's insane. Now, can we I would love to talk about OutRun and how the idea to start OutRun was born. And for people who are not aware of OutRun, can you talk more about it, Corey?
Sure. Yeah. OutRun kind of came to fruition because of both of our backgrounds, right? So we were both competitive runners in college, and then post-collegiately we were trying to find success as professional runners, but we were dealing with this kind of identity crisis of coming to terms with our sexuality, and we really felt that it prevented us from finding success, and not only in the running world but in life. You know, we couldn't live authentically, and I think that really dampens, you know, your quality of life a lot. So we're at this great place now where we are totally transparent with who we are in real life, on social media, whatever, and we're living our dreams, really. You know, we're doing something we love with running, but we're also just really happy with, I don't know, who we are as individuals. So we were talking about it about a year ago, really, with like, how do we give back? Like, how do we think this is so needed. We need like the visibility portion. That's why, you know, on social media and stuff, we're really open with our relationship and our sexual identities, because we didn't have that visibility when we were running and coming to terms with our sexuality back in the day, we say, but it's really a couple of years ago. So we were like, that visibility is so important, and we want to do everything we can to make sure we're always open, so others can see that, because what it does is it provides an example for people who are struggling with it. Of course. And so they're like, okay, we see Addie and Corey living their life. Everything's, you know, been pretty positive for them. They're really welcome and accepted, especially by the running community. So we now have the courage to do the same. And it kind of clicked with us that the running community has been one of the most welcoming, accepting communities that we've come across when we first decided to come out. And so we wanted to kind of bridge that gap and kind of show the LGBTQ plus community that there's also this other great community, the running community, trail, mountain, ultra, road, track, whatever. That's great. And they help you feel empowered, and they're encouraging, and they're super accepting. So we started OutRun to kind of bridge that gap, like I said. And what started as just like small group runs, and we went and spoke at like one company about our story, kind of exploded into this thing where everyone was reaching out like, we want to start a local chapter in our city, like an OutRun
that's awesome
chapter. Yeah,
I love that.
So it grew into something that we really had no plans for. It's kind of been organic, but we're super excited because there's so many different venues we see ourselves going down, and I think one of the most important things we want to do is share people's stories. It's not just elite runners, but also recreational runners, or, you know, people that don't run, just inspiring people. We just want to share stories to create more visibility, and so that others can, I don't know, just see that and be encouraged. And so that's kind of where we come from with starting it, but I don't know if you want to talk more about it too. Yeah. I don't know. It's like, I'm so passionate about it, so whenever someone asks me about it, I think I can go on for like hours and hours, because I think I wish it was there when I was dealing with my sexuality, because I had no example to kind of, except for Addie's blog. So I'm like, we need to do more, you know? So.
No, I love it. It's an amazing, I love the concept, because it's so, what is the word I'm looking for? It's such a great source to, like you were saying, to support people and empower people, you know, but it's also as a great idea. It's like, because it's like running, you know, and it's very targeted to the LGBTQ, LGBT. I can never say this. I'm sorry. But I mean, and what you guys are doing is basically leading runs. Every time you go different places, you're doing that, and you have your website as well. That I've seen the poster. I love that, and the merch is awesome. Who came up with the logo? That is amazing.
I did. It was like the only creative moment I had in my life, but yeah.
That's awesome. Really, it was like, it's pretty badass. Yeah, good job.
Yeah, we're happy with it.
We're so stoked about it. Yeah.
I love it. So for the rest of the year, you guys are doing the Pikes Peak. Any other races that you're thinking about?
I'm doing North Face 50 mile in November, which I'm excited about. I think the 50 mile distance is like kind of where I've really been clicking the last year or two. So, and it'll be crazy competitive like it always is. So that's kind of the big one. Corey's trying to talk me into getting on board with her doing that, but I'm I want her to wait a little bit longer to do a 50 mile. Plus, I don't want her to beat me.
I love it.
So that's kind of our main thing. And then,
yeah,
just a long break. And I think we're excited to know what our big summer plan next summer is with Western again. And that'll be kind of the goal for me. And we'll go out to the mountain championships. And I may race like for fun, but for Corey, I think that's going to be a distance and an event that she's going to be really good at. So she'll race and hopefully make the world team for that, which is in Argentina in November. And then she'll have some decisions to make. So,
awesome. Where?
I don't even know.
Patagonia.
It's close, though.
Yeah.
Tierra del Fuego.
I can't remember the region, what it's called, but it's the same weekend as North Face, so I'm gonna be jealous if she's going out there. And I'm not that San Francisco is a bad place to be either, but a little bit jealous. So yeah, kind of see what happens.
Thanks, guys. This has been fun. I really appreciate you coming. For people, if they would like to connect with you, where can they find you on social media?
My Instagram is just my name at ADDIE BRACY. And then Corey kind of maintains the OutRun Instagram. So if you want to shoot that a message, that's just at, out_run?
There's like two.
So you should be able to find it if you search it, but yeah.
And we'll put all the links.
Yeah.
Perfect.
What is your personal one? Just your name too?
Oh yeah, it's just my name, Corey -Connor. But yeah, OutRun. And then I think what's really important that we try to like respond to everything is we get a lot of emails actually through our website, and it's basically people just reaching out like that they want to share their story to someone.
I love that.
I think it feels encouraging, empowering for them to tell us about their story. So we definitely encourage that, and we always try to respond. So you can contact us with OutRun through info@outrunning.org.
Awesome. I love that. Yeah, loving that what you guys are doing. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having us.
Bye.